Hey, it's been 890 episodes of this program, and we've never talked directly about accountability. I find it fascinating. Tom and I were just discussing that. It's probably one of the topics that's most important to your success and my success. So, we're going to spend a week talking about accountability. It's going to start today with what it means. So, think about what accountability means to you, and we'll be back in a couple minutes to have our discussion about it and hopefully get your one thing in the comments. All that and more on episode 891 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm good. I like this topic.
You do?
I do. This is one of my favorites.
Why is that?
Because I struggle with it all the time.
Maybe that's about how you define it.
Could be. I guess we'll talk through that.
I guess we shall. All right, everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast. Each week, Bob and I choose a topic. This week's topic is accountability, as Bob mentioned. And every weekday, we dive a little bit deeper into that topic. And so as we go through that conversation today about what it means, and as Bob asked in his opening, is be curious of what it means for you. We encourage your thoughts and ideas and to share those as we have that discussion, because we know that'll add value to the conversation. At the conclusion of the conversation, Bob and I will each then offer our one thing, our today's antidote. That thing that we hope will help you figure out when you might be frustrated, stuck, uncertain, lacking a little confidence. Maybe things are in a little bit of chaos. It'll help you find the confidence and clarity that you need to move forward, take your next step, and achieve the goals that you have. And of course, if you have a one thing that you would like to share, please feel free to share it in the comments as well. Somebody might be out there, and people have talked to them a lot about accountability, and they've talked at them about it. They haven't really heard it. And so maybe they will hear the way you share it and then be able to leverage that differently. So please, feel free to share your value. Before we dive into the conversation, though, each morning, Bob and I do our celebrations. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today?
Hey, first of all, let me explain. It's a new week. We don't talk about this every day, but we do these celebrations because it's a chance for us to get in the right frame of mind. It's a chance for us to recognize the steps we take, even regardless of the results. So, for instance, I'm going to celebrate the fact that I had a really quiet weekend. I haven't had a quiet weekend in a long time. It was quiet. I took a 4-hour nap on Saturday. Yes. I was up early for the women's soccer game yesterday morning. I was telling you I watched most of a NASCAR race, including a portion that I tape recorded. I don't know. What is it you do with Comcast or Verizon? VCR'd it, or I don't even know what the technology is, but I recorded it and then I watched it later only to find out that the race was suspended. So they'll race again today. Excellent. You know me and my NASCAR.
Yes, this is a new phenomenon that we've discovered.
It fascinates me too.
Yeah, it's what's real for you.
That's it. How about you? What are you celebrating?
This morning, I'm celebrating that I get the chance this week to do a number of presentations. Get to do one tonight, and tomorrow's not really a presentation. It's more of a facilitation, which is a follow-up to a meeting that I was working with an organization on about a couple weeks ago. And then on Thursday, we have a gathering. It's, again, not a presentation, but a gathering as a conclusion of a summer-long project that I've been working on. So it's a week of being with and in front of clients. So I'm excited about it.
And while I'm thinking about it, I'm still holding out Wednesday night for you.
Okay.
Oh, you're going to can it. You're not going to do it, are you?
I don't know. I gotta relook at the week.
Oh, here we go.
But there's other things also going on in the week that are causing some that I didn't think about when we first had the conversation.
Wait, I'm sorry. When we first had the conversation, or when you initiated the conversation that we were going to do something Wednesday evening, that was all you. That wasn't me.
Really?
Yes.
I have to go back. Did we record it?
No.
So it's only your word, my word, or our memory. So you're trying to hold me accountable to something you think I said, or maybe I have to think about what I said. Okay, fair enough.
Oh, well. If not, we'll do it some other time. Getting on Tom's calendar, folks, is a challenge. That's why I do this program. That's the sole reason, because then I have a good shot of him being here between 6:50 and 7:20 most days.
7:20. 7:10.
All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. We got a great topic.
All right, why don't you dive in? Kick us off.
So it's fascinating. You said to me before the program that we had not talked about this directly in all this time. And accountability is such a big part of achieving success as a business owner, as a leader, as an employee. And to me, what accountability means is saying what you're going to do and actually doing it. So for instance, I made a commitment to myself and to a coach several weeks ago to make 200 contacts with people. 400 contacts a week, 200 calls a week.
400 contacts a week?
Can be an email, that can be a text, that can be a meeting them at a grocery store, that could be a networking event. 400 a week.
Do I count as one or?
No. Nope.
I don't count.
Nope, you do not.
Huh.
And I've hit 400 a couple of weeks over the last 3 or 4 months. It's hard. It's a lot of contacts. And 200 of those for me are supposed to be telephone calls. So I have not hit that 200 in any week. And so I haven't been accountable to myself. And I know from talking to other coaches in the program I'm in that this is the key to success. They find that the number leads to the results they're looking for. So I have a different week this week because of some logistical things that are moving in different ways. So I'm committed to that. This morning I got up and I said, this is going to be a 400 contact week, 200 calls. Here we go. And so the accountability is to myself. Now I've said it to you and to the world. So now anyone can say to me during the week, hey, dude, how are you doing on your 400? I go, oh, shoot. Oh, you know about that? Yeah, I listened to your program. Or, yeah, you said something to me about it. And I think that accountability is what drives me to actually do the things that aren't always the easiest. And I think that's what it means. It's really about doing the things you say you want to do or need to do to achieve the results you want to achieve. Because the client fairy is not going to drop down out of the sky this week and provide me new clients. Not going to happen. I know this because I've looked for the client fairy now for many months. He
was busy with someone else, and they're just getting.
He is. He apparently likes, I don't know, couples where one's really tall and one's shorter, or I don't know, whatever that looks like. But we have this thing, well, I'm trying to build a business, and when you start to break it down, you talk to someone about how they're trying to build their business or how they're trying to be successful as a leader. It's like, well, are you doing these things? And they go, well, yeah, I am. And you start to break it down. It's like, well, are you really doing these things? Well, I want to do these things. I want to have 400 contacts this week. Well, what got in the way? Well, it was a really busy week. I didn't feel well and I hurt my finger. Had to take my dog to the vet, blah, 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 on and on. And it doesn't get you where you want to go. I see Kelly's with us this morning and says client fairy LOL. I thought someone might like that. And even better, I need the client fairy to visit too. Welcome to my club. Yes. And honestly, the whole idea of a client fairy is not, that's how it is. I want great things to happen and I expect them to happen, but I'm not always doing the work I need to do to encourage them to happen. And when I see the people who I would identify as having the results I'm looking for, I see that they put their head down and they work. You do it. You're a great example to me. You put your head down and work.
Oh, you only know.
And you're presenting left and right this year. A couple of years ago, I was doing all the presenting. This year, you presented, I don't know, 100 times compared to my maybe one or two. What?
I'm having a moment here.
Okay. Is it a senior moment or is
No, it's a contemplation moment.
Okay. Well, that's not really good for our program to just say nothing. Just so you know, that's part of Tom why I speak out loud and just sort of process verbally, because if I just went, it gets really old quick.
Well, I was doing that while you were speaking, so I felt like we were.
Do you want me to
okay.
speak some more? Because I'm always.
No, I'm okay.
No.
I'm happy to. I didn't mean it that way.
No, I'm baiting you into it.
So, what's fascinating to me?
Watch out, folks. I'm in trouble here.
Well, as we think about accountability, is we make a decision in a moment that this is, we're stuck, let's say. And in being stuck, or as we are stuck, we figure out, well, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. Whether we figure it out or we get some help to figure out, this is what I'll do. Then the challenge becomes, how do you do it? Which can keep you stuck, or you can. And so, one, you're accountable to what you're going to do. Then you have to figure out how to do it. And that becomes a challenge as well, that maybe you figure out on your own, or maybe you need help figuring out how to do what's next. Then you have to remain accountable to it.
Well, I would add another thing in between there. You have to figure out when to do it.
Okay, so there's when to do it as well. And
then that's one that gets harder for me.
And then how do you remain accountable to do what you say you knew you needed to do, how you needed to do it, and when you needed to do it? And in all of that time, as I've said countless times on the show, results change over time. And now you have new things to process. And in that processing, what you thought was a priority no longer becomes a priority. And so you've set up this plan, and hopefully, along with that plan, how to do it, when to do it, and how to remain accountable for it. And yet now your priorities are changing. And it just struck me as fascinating that we want to remain accountable to what we say we do. And oftentimes we beat ourselves up for not remaining accountable to what we say or do. And in reality, what might be happening is other things take a priority. So it becomes this thing of, what are we remaining accountable to? And I guess it goes to the core point of, what does accountability mean? And is there space where we maybe shouldn't be accountable to what we said we were going to do? So like at the beginning of the year, if you had said, oh yeah, I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do. And I set a plan to be accountable for it all year long. Some point in the year, either something else took priority because of things that you didn't know at the time you made that decision, or something happened outside of your control, which many things can happen outside of your control, that you no longer feel the need to, or doesn't make sense for you to remain accountable to what you said. So is like accountability a finite thing? Or, so that's where I was stuck. As I was thinking about this, I was trying to figure out, like, what does accountability really mean? And then and because I was thinking, if I'm not really sure of what that means, how do I talk about this for the rest of the week? And so I don't know. That was my moment where I was like, this is fascinating, is that we set up to be accountable, whatever that means and whatever it looks like. And then things happen. And so now are we being accountable to what we said we were going to be accountable for, or accountable to something else that has taken a priority in our life? And how do
Well,
you?
and there are things that we have to deal with, like, if someone's sick in your family, you have to tend to them. That's different than, oh, the NASCAR race is on at noon today. I really like watching NASCAR and I'd really like to see that. So I'm going to stop for 2 hours and watch the rest of the race and not do the things I said I was going to do. So tomorrow morning, you'd be like, hey, how many calls did you do yesterday? Oh, I did 35. Oh, really? Wow. You said you had a pretty quiet day. Well, I got busy with some things, i.e., I turned on NASCAR at noon.
Which maybe your soul, your body needed that. Your mind needed that.
No.
Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I think that's where we have to figure out what's real for us. If you made 35 straight calls in the morning, by noon,
By
you
the
might
way,
have
no
been
one's
like,
going to answer the phone for the morning from anyone, because they're going to be like, oh, it's Bob. Bob's calling me. Kelly's going, does Bob have my number?
he's going to be calling me. Well, and I think, though, the question becomes is, okay, you made those 35 calls. It's noon. Maybe you're just fried. Maybe a lot of people picked up and you had a lot of conversations and a lot going on. And before you knew it, you're like, holy cow, that took an effort. I need a break from that.
Right.
So now you're balancing the accountability to the things you said you were going to do for your work and the accountability to maybe your mental health or physical health. And how do you then decide what the priority is? And maybe even not even about deciding. Likely we're going to beat ourselves up because we evaluate taking the time out of the 8 hours a day, 9 to 5, 7 to 5, whatever it is, 7 to 4, as not being held accountable to my work, because we stopped for a moment because we were trying to be a little more accountable to our health. Now, you can justify all of those things however you want, and yet I think there's some truth, some realness in there for each of us.
Some. I think there's also the ability to manipulate the data.
Sure.
So I worked for 5 hours yesterday, so I can take 3 hours and goof off today. And I think,
Is that manipulating, or is that possibly a reality?
Kelly's asking me a really important question. Are you supposed to talk to those people or leave 35 messages? That's a lot of calls. In a perfect world, talk to all those people. In a more realistic world, probably leave a lot of messages with follow-up text messages. And you figure 400, you divide 400 by 5 days, and you get what? Roughly 80 a day, I think.
Well, here's another fascinating thing, accountable. Okay, you told your coach you were going to do that. So you're trying to be accountable to them.
And it wasn't my coach just saying, hey, pull a number out of the sky.
No.
We talked about what my goals were. We went through a process. Here are the results that I'm looking for. Here's the pathway to achieve those results based on what we've seen, this. So it's not like we jumped out without a parachute and said, let's land in the field. We had a parachute. We thought about how much we did, all the prep work. And we also had a real serious discussion about, hey, if you're serious about this goal you need to be serious about this pathway. I think that's the part that's often missing with us in the accountability. I consented to this pathway. This wasn't thrown at me. This wasn't pie in the sky. I want to be a billionaire. This was, these are the goals I want to achieve. This is where I want to be at the end of the year. This is what I need to do to achieve that goal. And so the only piece that's been missing over, I don't even want to say how long, is the lack of accountability.
What else has happened since that time? Recently? Did you gain new knowledge or experience?
Yes.
And what was that last week?
What was that last week? I don't know.
What was our conversation last week?
I don't remember. I put these out of my head as quickly as we do them.
Less is more.
Less.
So here you have a conversation with your coach. You go through all the processes.
And here's the thing, Tom, you're right. I could have, instead of 400 calls this week, I could have 4 calls. 4 great calls that would lead to 4 great clients, and it would be the best week in the world. Could very well be. However, here's the one thing I know. If I make no calls, I will have no more clients.
You know that for a fact.
I do, because I can give you days of that. I have a very good track record of days where I made very few calls.
And yet you still have gotten new clients.
That would be because the client fairy came down from the sky and handed me a client.
Wait a minute. I thought you said the client fairy didn't exist.
Well, apparently he does, or she does.
Well, here's the funny thing, though, is so you're looking at one way that you were accountable, one pathway that you created that you thought was going to get you the results you need.
Mm-hmm.
A pathway. There are many pathways to that. And you may or may not have remained accountable to that pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And all the steps that are a part of it. And you also got new clients, some of which may or may not have come from the calls that you had.
Mm-hmm.
So here's like the thing, right? We choose pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we're really stuck. If we can't come up with a pathway. And it's interesting, again, I think the word that you say, I just saw part of that message that she said.
Kelly's got the best line of all. Can you give me the client fairy number, please? It sounds easier than 400 phone calls.
Right. It was just one call.
But here's the thing, Tom. This is what fascinates me. This resonates with Kelly.
Sure.
And on some level, we all expect a customer fairy, a client fairy to drop down. I've talked to owners of businesses like brick and mortar stores, and they're like, yeah, we opened our doors 3 weeks ago and we're expecting people to start showing up. Oh, really? Have you promoted the business in any way? And I worked with one business, a guitar shop, that was on a very prominent street, but in a very tucked away place. Oh, we're on the street. We're paying a premium for this space. Oh, okay, great. I said, why don't you put like balloons on a string with a brick out in the road so people see there's something new there? Oh, people know we're here. They see us at the stoplight and like, maybe, maybe not. So tried it. Sure enough, people started coming in. The fairy, hey, we pay for a premium for this space. The results should come. But when the results didn't come, rather than look for ways to affect that situation, it was, we're just going to wait and see. We've already done enough. People will figure it out. It takes time.
And potentially are all of those a possibility?
Absolutely, yes. But we can also do things to affect that time.
Maybe.
Well, you and I do this program for a variety of reasons. One of them, secret let out of the bag. It would be nice if we picked up some clients from this.
Okay.
At least for me, maybe not for you. I mean, maybe you're the most altruistic guy on earth, which is great.
Well, and the question is, sometimes we don't always know what brings somebody in. And I think that's the one of the challenges with creating a pathway.
Mm-hmm.
If you create a pathway and you have expectations, sometimes those expectations aren't met. Typically, most times, I would say, those expectations aren't met. And so now we get frustrated, or we get new knowledge, experience, or perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So where, previously, you and your coach came up with the pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like more calls was what you came up with.
Hmm.
Perfectly acceptable. Then we have a conversation that on Monday you were not 100% clear on the concept of less is more. Maybe you still aren't. And yet I thought by Friday you had a little different understanding around less is more. And so now you have new knowledge, experience, and perspective that you didn't have when you set up that pathway. And so I think one of the biggest challenges is, and what makes accountability difficult, is we're not in a vacuum where I set a pathway and I just go. And if I just keep doing the pathway, things are going to happen. And I don't know of anything else. Nothing new is coming at me. Nobody's sharing any ideas or value. And so I just continue believing that this is the pathway. Yet that's not reality. Every day we're struck with new value that could cause us to say, maybe there's some different things about the pathway that we could modify.
Kelly's comment, could part of the struggle with accountability be we won't celebrate enough when we do follow through? We only see the negative side of accountability, like we did not follow through. In my world, accountability can come across as a swear word. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the bell has been found.
Ding, 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 ding. We don't celebrate the 35 calls we made.
Right.
Because our expectation was we were going to make 200, and we thought that only if we make 200 or 400 will we achieve what we think we're going to achieve. And I think that's one of the so Kelly, kudos to you. I think that's a huge part of figuring out what does accountability mean to each of us. You know, accountability could mean we completed everything we said we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That you can go back to your coach and say, yep, I got my 400 contacts in. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pick up 20 new clients today. And so are we accountable to that number, or are we accountable to taking the action as best we can?
I'm going to be accountable to taking the action, the 400 for the week. And when I get to the end of the week and I've achieved that 400, I will be celebrating. I even know what I'm going to do to celebrate.
All right, here's my question.
Okay.
So you know exactly what's going to happen to you throughout this week?
No, I do not.
Okay. So is there a possibility, slightest possibility, something could happen that would absolutely keep you from making 400 calls?
Sure.
That therein lies the challenge.
Right.
Is if our accountability is only to the exact outcome that we set up at some time, we are not taking into account the fact that things are happening around us all the time. Most things we can't control. And so we may not be able, factors beyond our control may make it impossible for us to be accountable to what we said we were going to do.
Is that your one thing?
I don't know. I don't even know if it's a thing. I just
I think it's a thing. It's a pretty good thing.
And so I think the question becomes, and this is, I think, where we have to be. So this would be my one thing, I think, as a follow-up to that, is what it means is it's different for all of us. And I think it means if we are attempting to do the best we can, given what we know, and celebrate whatever it is that we do at the end, because we took some action. If we didn't do anything, now that could be, that might not be something to celebrate. Yet, something could happen in the next 30 seconds that would completely change our ability to do any of it. Yet we at least set up a plan. Like, that's part of it. I think the accountability is, hey, I figured out what to do next. So that's one step. Now I need to figure out how to do it. By the time I figured it out and the time I figured out how to do it, something may have come in and completely eliminated that as a possibility. And then choosing, when am I going to do it? And then, okay, now am I now actually doing it? Which is the accountability part. And yet there's so many things that can happen in the middle of that will derail all our best intentions. And unfortunately, we get stuck because we set up something, we then had expectations, and then our expectations aren't met. And we just immediately go back to being stuck, frustrated, uncertain, because we judge what happened and have to have something to blame rather than just understand that, fascinating. Now, what do I do next? That make any sense? Uh-oh, I lost Bob, or I lost me, or Bob got mad at me. I'm not quite sure what happened there. So anyhow, we're missing Bob's one thing. If I'm still here and you're still listening to me, technology, you never quite know what's going on. And if you have one thing that you'd like to share while we wait to see if Bob comes back, or maybe he's mad at me and he's never coming back, then please feel free to put your thoughts in comments in the chat, because we know it'll add value for someone. Someone, it might be just the thing that they are looking for. And I think in all of this, I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't be accountable and that accountability has no value. I think it has a lot of value. I also think that sometimes we become over accountable, which leads us to continuing to being stuck, frustrated, uncertain, because we judge anything and everything that has happened. And so, again, if you have one thing you'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments. Thank you, Kelly, for saying, hey, it makes sense. I'm still trying to figure out. I might have to re-listen to that to see if I think it makes sense. And thank you for your comments throughout. We always appreciate comments, thoughts, and ideas. If you're listening to the podcast and there is no place to comment, please feel free to join us inside of our Sculpt Your Business Facebook group. We'll help you go from chaos and confusion to confidence and control. And if you're trying to figure out this whole process, figuring out what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to become accountable to what you said you're going to do, while also maybe understanding that things can happen that may not allow you to be accountable, those are challenging things to figure out. And so if that's something you're struggling with, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. You can reach out to Bob or me. We'd be happy to have a conversation around that. That's what we help people do. Even ourselves, help one another figure out how to define accountability, how to define what we need to do next or want to do next, how to do it, when to do it, and then try to help us avoid the judgment that is sitting out there most likely to happen. So with that, we look forward to seeing you inside of that Facebook group. If not, we will see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time for our next episode, Eastern time for our next episode of today's Antidotes. And because Bob's not here, I'll say, hey, remember, go out and embrace the renegade in you. It's so, 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 so worth it. Hopefully I did that sort of as Bob would do it. Anyhow, all right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day. We will see you soon. Hey, since Bob's not here, I get to do the ending result message. Here's our ending message. If you are struggling, if things seem like it's complete chaos and confusion, and you're uncertain either how to figure out what to do next, how to do it, when to do it, or maybe, as we've been talking about all morning, how to remain accountable to what you said you do without letting judgment drive in, please reach out. Our Sculpt Your Business program can help you go from that chaos and confusion to the confidence and control that you need to help avoid judgment, stop being stuck, and move forward along your own unique pathway to the success that you desire.